The rise and fall of Keith Thurman. Now, I actually made this video before the Keith Thurman versus Manny Pacquiao officially got made. However, when it did get made, I decided to wait on it and just remake the video after the fight, because if Keith Thurman was capable of beating a Manny Pacquiao, then obviously none of this would have had mattered and he would have been in a better position. But since he couldn't even beat a Manny Pacquiao, let's talk about it. So when Keith Thurman first came on the scene, he was saying all the right things. Everything you really wanted in a fighter, he claimed that he had it. He claimed he wanted to fight everyone. He claimed he's a pride fighter, not a prize fighter. And he was saying all the right things that the hardcore boxing fans want to hear. Now, obviously, saying and doing are two completely different things. And then when he got put in a position to prove everything that he claimed he was, he turned his back on the fans. And it all started with Errol Spence. Ironically, everything that Keith Thurman was claiming turned out to be Errol Spence. He was actually just talking about Errol Spence. He wasn't talking about himself. And as soon as Errol Spence really came on the scene, Keith Thurman changed his body language. He went from "don't duck me, son," to "I'ma fight you 2 years from now." 2 years later, he states, "Oh, I have an injury, give me another 2 years." Then after 2 years, "Oh, the fight ain't big enough yet, we gotta build it up. I ain't Floyd Mayweather, I ain't gonna make out 5 years," even though it been 5 years. So when Keith Thurman first came on the boxing scene, obviously Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao was still on top. And you could tell Keith Thurman really looked up to these guys. And he called Floyd Mayweather from the jump. He called him out, claiming he wanted that fight, claiming Floyd Mayweather ducking him as soon as he came on the scene. Now, when Keith Thurman actually started stepping up, he was actually the hottest prospect in the game in the welterweight division. He had exciting style. He could talk the talk, from telling Paulie, "Don't duck me, son," to calling out Sean Porter, winning that fight, to actually getting his first main event fight versus Diaz. He actually lived up to the hype with that performance. After that, he went from "don't duck me, son" to "I got a O and I ain't afraid to let it go. If you could beat me, beat me." Then afterwards, Keith Thurman was talking to all the new media, giving them press, talking to LDBC, claiming he wants the Floyd Mayweather fight, claiming Floyd Mayweather doesn't fight any youngster in the game that's fresh like him, that believe that he could beat him, blah, 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 blah. And the reason I say it was just a bunch of blah, 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 because he even stated once he's in Floyd Mayweather's shoes, he won't do the same thing Floyd Mayweather does, that he will give a youngster a title shot. Even though obviously that turned out to be false, even about Floyd Mayweather claiming that he doesn't like fighting youngsters, because Floyd Mayweather fought Canelo Alvarez at the time when everybody was claiming he was ducking Canelo, and as soon as he schooled him, they claimed Canelo unexperienced, and Floyd Mayweather got all the experiences in the world. Even though Canelo had the youth advantage, Floyd Mayweather was already old at the time. But we're not even going to get to that. Let's just focus on Keith Thurman and what he had to say at the time. So the main thing Keith Thurman kept talking about is that once he becomes a legend, and that's by either beating a legend like Floyd Money Mayweather or Manny Pacquiao at the time, or by starting his own legacy and doing what Floyd Mayweather did by moving up divisions and beating and cleaning out the divisions by dominating every division. And that's what Keith Thurman claimed he wanted to do, and that's the path he wanted to be on. And most importantly, he claims once he get to that level, he will give a youngster a shot for the throne. Now, it was all good and dandy till everything became a reality. And life hit Keith Thurman in the face, because everything he was claiming out to be, he had to start proving it and living up to everything he was saying. And just for the people that might have been living under a rock at the time, Keith Thurman was calling out Danny Garcia, saying he will welcome him to the welterweight division. The welterweights, we different, and if you're going to come to my division, I would like to welcome you to the division. So you would know what it's like to fight a real welterweight. And obviously, we all know when Terence Crawford decided to move up to the division, Keith Thurman was nowhere to be found and didn't want to welcome Terence Crawford to the division. Instead, he was telling Terence Crawford he got to prove himself, he got to do this, he got to do that. And he didn't keep the same energy that he had with Danny Garcia. Even though Terence Crawford was and still the #1 pound for pound, and he was more improving than Danny Garcia. But obviously, the reason he wanted to welcome Danny Garcia and not Terence Crawford, because Danny is more beatable. It ain't because he's more proven. It's actually the opposite thing. He wanted to welcome Danny because he's more beatable and he don't see no flaws in Terence Crawford's game. But like I said, everything went left once Errol Spence started calling him out and he came on the scene. And obviously Keith Thurman knew about Errol Spence, because when Errol first turned pro, Keith Thurman actually confirmed that he met him and he told him, "It was a pleasure to meet you and we will meet one day in the ring." Now, Keith Thurman turned his back on the fans before he even won a title shot. I mean, he started changing his energy toward the fighting game as soon as Errol Spence called him out, before he even had a title shot, because Floyd told Keith, if you want a title shot so bad, all you have to do is fight Errol Spence on my undercard. And obviously that's a big stage. And if you could look good, obviously there's a possibility he could fight Floyd next. But he didn't want to go through an Errol Spence. And he asked for $10 million to fight for Floyd Mayweather title when Floyd decided to vacate his belts. He said absolutely not. Errol Spence haven't proven anything. And he was acting like he had a Floyd Mayweather resume, even though he ain't even fought a world champion yet. And it was like a slap in the face to his hardcore fans, because you got to keep in mind, if you dating a girl and whatever intentions you had about this girl, whatever you wanted to do with her, right? And you started seeing signs that she wifey material, she claiming this, she claiming that, she claiming she a ride or die. And you like, you know what? Forget this, man. I'm wifing this up, because we all know nowadays it's hard to find a good, loyal woman. Then you find out later, after y'all done got engaged, y'all about to have a wedding, that everything she claimed, she's not. She claims she knows how to cook. She don't even know how to cook. She always want to eat McDonald's. She claims that she likes to read books and stay at home. Then you find out she likes to go out and have girl nights almost every night. And you thought she trying to help you come up, but all she does is take money from you. So what you gonna do? Most likely cancel the wedding and let it go. Let it go, let it go. With my Manny Pacquiao voice, if y'all didn't know, now y'all know. So Keith Thurman, that's what he did to the fans. It's like a relationship, just like a relationship with a female. He had a relationship with his hardcore fans, and he turned around and turned his back on his fans. He went from being a pride fighter to a prize fighter. Whatever he accused Mayweather of being, that's what he turned out to be. And that's what he wanted to be to begin with. He went from having the motto of, I got an O and I ain't afraid to tell her to go, to I got an O and I'm afraid to tell her to go, to a Terence Crawford or an Errol Spence. If you could beat me, beat me. Just don't kill me, Errol. That's what Keith Thurman turned out to be. Or that's how he coming off to the public from his previous self. Now, Keith Thurman, after not wanting to fight Errol Spence on Floyd Mayweather undercard for a title, he ended up fighting Guerrero. Guerrero was coming off a loss to Floyd. Keith Thurman, after that, his one-time streak stopped. Obviously, he couldn't stop Guerrero. And hopefully that one-time motto don't turn into a one-time on pay-per-view and one-time only. So after being Keith Thurman, he started saying that the fight with Errol Spence will happen in 2017, blah, blah, blah. Then 2017, before it arrived, he fought Sean Porter. That was a great fight. It was a close fight. But again, at the highest level, his power seemed to be there. He just couldn't take guys out. He don't commit like he used to, or doesn't take as many chances and start cruising like he did with a Danny Garcia fight after he's a little bit ahead. And then obviously Keith Thurman went and fought Danny Garcia and won a close fight there. I had him winning both of them fights, obviously. So his fans thought Keith Thurman wanted to go for undisputed. Fans thought Keith Thurman wanted to reach higher goals. However, Keith Thurman was very content to where he got to. And he told Errol, I ain't gonna fight you till you get a strap. That same year, obviously, Errol Spence already became a champion, stopping Kell Brook in an impressive fashion in his own hometown. He stopped Kell Brook in the UK. Came back with the belt. Then Keith Thurman went from, I want to fight and unify the division, to, oh, I'm injured, I got to recover. But what's funny is he was trying to get a fight with Manny Pacquiao at the time. And Manny Pacquiao was not interested. And obviously Keith Thurman, he had close fights where he claimed all he needed to really win is 7 rounds out of 12, because that's what Floyd Mayweather do, which it was completely BS, because Floyd Mayweather wins every second or every round. That's what you do, Keith Thurman. You like to cruise around. So he wasn't looking beatable where Manny Pacquiao wanted to target him. So because Pacquiao turned down that fight, Keith Thurman went and did his surgery, claimed he had an elbow injury, and it was only supposed to be for 6 months, but he stayed out of the ring for almost 2 years. Why, you may ask? It's because Errol Spence and Terence Crawford climbed up to the food chain. So he didn't want none of that work. And he saw everything that he was stating about himself in Errol Spence. That one-time motto that Keith Thurman claims, however, for Errol was man down. And then Errol came out with strap season. And he saw that Errol, no matter who he fights, he was stopping them guys. And even though at the highest level, usually you don't knock out the top guys. However, Errol Spence is the body snatcher. He was able to break them guys down and just stopping them left and right, punishing his opponents. So Keith Thurman, knowing that he can't take it to the body and his defense is kind of questionable, he didn't want that Errol Spence work. So 2017 came, obviously. That fight didn't happen. And Keith Thurman disappeared from the scene. And Errol Spence took off. And that's when things went left for Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman decided to come back in 2018 to fight Lopez, or a tune-up. However, he kept on stating that he ain't ready, he not hungry. And Errol Spence was standing next to him, and I kid you not, Errol Spence told him, I want this fight more than I want to breathe, or as bad as I want to breathe. And Keith Thurman responded saying, oh, I'm not hungry right now, he wants it more. Funny enough, when he first came to the pro game, Keith Thurman stated, I'm content being the second best, because in the amateurs, I figured that I was the second best in my division. So if I could actually become the second best in the world in the pro game, then I'm content with that. Competing against all these people, thousands of people, I'm content being the second best. So he was looking at Errol, and he's already given up the first position. However, Terence Crawford came to the welterweight division and won a belt. Then Keith Thurman is like, damn, I'm not even the second best. You know what? I'm going to go back to retirement again. I'm going to still claim I still have an injury and disappear for a little more while. By then, Errol Spence done sold $400K on pay-per-view against Mikey, packed the 47,000 arena. Dunn became the number one welterweight. And Terence Crawford is obviously the number one pound for pound still. Won a belt. Calling out Keith Thurman, calling out Errol. And then the mega fight turned out to be Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. The talk have changed. And Keith Thurman delayed his comeback to 2019, fighting Lopez and almost getting knocked out in that fight. And I told people, Keith Thurman is no longer the same. So when the Manny Pacquiao fight happened, I told people that's a tough fight. They kept telling me, nah, Keith Thurman, he gonna show up and show out. However, that's not what ended up happening. Now, after he actually got a title shot against the legend, or just a shot, I should say, because Keith Thurman was a champion, he kept talking the talk. He changed the tone against Manny Pacquiao. He went to the villain. He went to that hungry Keith Thurman. I'm going to crucify him. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But as soon as Errol Spence's name get brought up, he stated that that fight ain't big enough yet. And Errol Spence need to grow his name a little bit more. Keep in mind, Errol has a bigger name than a Keith Thurman at the time already. And Keith Thurman been out of the ring for 2 years. Nobody knows Keith Thurman anymore, Hardcore fans don't forgot about him. And the people that still know Keith Thurman, they done gave up on him. Like I said, it's a lost relationship. It's like you breaking up with your girl. They don't want to mess with Keith Thurman no more. And obviously Keith Thurman was stating that for good reasons, because he knew what Errol did to Bundu, the same fighter that he couldn't stop. So he knew how good Errol was. He wanted that to be his Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd type of fight. And he even went as far as saying, I'm not interested in a Terence Crawford, after he turned down a fight with Terence Crawford before the Manny Pacquiao fight. And actually admitted on camera that he's ducking Errol Spence, right? Then it was all good and dandy. Like I said, he stayed claiming this and that. But when he actually got in the ring with a legend, an old legend that he claimed he could have actually beat him in his prime, he ended up losing to Manny Pacquiao and getting dropped in the first round. And what makes it worse is that he not trying to avoid these guys in his division, but he's still calling out a retired fighter that haven't fought in like 4 years, or a boxer in 4 years, Floyd Mayweather. He's still calling him out. He was calling out Floyd 2 days before the fight with Manny Pacquiao. He was still calling out, believe it or not, Conor McGregor, the guy who haven't won a fight in 2 years and is not even a boxer. He was calling him out, and he stated he would go in the octagon and fight him. But he won't get in the ring with an Errol Spence or a Terence Crawford. He claimed he wanted to fight Floyd Mayweather so he could become a legend. But when it's the #1 pound for pound in the same division as him, calling him out and sending him an offer, oh no, he not interested in that. You know why? Because all he really wanted to do was to fight Floyd Money Mayweather for the money. Because that type of paycheck was worth it, the ass whooping that he wanted to take from Floyd. He was like, you know what? If I get that Floyd Mayweather fight, yeah, I'm going to get schooled or whooped, but shit, I'm going to get paid. I mean, it's like us talking, man. Would you get in a ring with Tyson for $5 million? And somebody said, hell yeah, I'll get in the ring. As soon as he hit me, I'm hitting the deck. That was Keith Thurman thinking to himself about Floyd. Because he always knew. And he knows that if Floyd wasn't a megastar, he would never look his way. He only wanted to fight Floyd and Pacquiao for the money, obviously. Then after losing to Manny Pacquiao, now everything is going downhill because he don't have a backbone to lean on. He turned his back on his hardcore fans. He wasn't able to be a villain, because in order to be a villain, you gotta still win, not talk the talk and end up getting whooped. And that left him. And we know what happens when you first lose. Your paydays go down. And he's known for ducking. And he also lost his relationship with his fans. So Keith Thurman is in a bad spot right now. I'm not trying to shit on any fighter while they down, but I'm just bringing things to light. I mean, Keith Thurman claimed that he the biggest star, this and that. And then fighting a Manny Pacquiao, he only sold 500K. And Errol Spence managed to do 400K versus a Mikey Garcia, a guy that never been on pay-per-view. And obviously, we know for a fact that Manny Pacquiao is the star, and that's why the fight was on pay-per-view, because of a Manny Pacquiao. Errol Spence is becoming the new cash cow, and that 400 sale was because of him. The fact that he fighting Sean Porter on pay-per-view tells you that he the star. Because when Keith Thurman fought Sean Porter, it wasn't on pay-per-view. Mikey Garcia next fight won't be on pay-per-view if he fights at 140 or whoever. So at the end of the day, you all could deny Errol his shine, but y'all must give credit where credit is due. So Keith Thurman, he a perfect example of a fighter that cried wolf, because he talk all that talk about Broner not living up, and he ended up not living up to it. And funny enough, he possibly would have made more money fighting an Errol Spence than a Manny Pacquiao, but obviously it would have been a different type of punishment. I mean, Errol Spence snatched his soul in the ring. I mean, even Manny Pacquiao managed to hurt Keith Thurman to the body. Collazo did. So imagine what an Errol Spence will do to him to the body. And, you know, like I always say, subscribe below if you're trying to get smarter by the minute, if you're trying to get dumber by the second. Don't listen to these casual fans. And follow ONETIME Boxing for the funniest boxing memes. And follow me at IKTV. And on the description box below, my YouTube, my Instagram. And click on the notification bell to get notified every time we go live. And to be continued on the next episode of IKTV.